go. All right. And I'm sure I can. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. I want you to imagine that we've just come back from a hard day's nature journaling and we've sat down, we're having a cup of tea. We're all just like lovely. We've got fresh air, gentle movement. We've been in this beautiful forest, maybe, and we've noticed some amazing stuff. And we're just really buzzing because we had that time with nature and each other. And the tea and the conversation are flowing. Could be coffee. Maybe we've got a bit of cake. We're having the reward. And it's at this point, this time, that the community really builds, it really gels. And this is where the friendships are made. So that's what I'm hoping the podcast is going to be, that it's where community is built. Yeah. So if you have a cup of something, you can.
Cheers.
Cheers. Excellent. Oh, that looks like a great vintage there, Jack.
That's a good cuppa.
It's
That's
got
a
some good flavor.
cuppa potential right there.
Nice. Cup of potential. Yeah. I wonder how much potential is in there. I do have questions. They might not be the normal questions. Some of which
makes it more fun.
some of which have come from the community as well. So thanks to the community for contributing. Could I, first of all, ask you to give our audience a bit of an introduction? Who are you? What do you do? And why are you here?
Okay. Hi. I'm Jack. Formerly, my parents named me John Muir Laws, which is what I go by in books and publishing. But anybody who knows me calls me Jack. So I'm Jack, and I am a naturalist. I am a curious person. I am a lifelong nature journaler, and I also am committed to trying to share this tool, which has been absolutely transformative in my life and my world, helping me just be present and engage with my life. I want to share that tool with other people. And so I do a lot of education around the tool of nature journaling as a way of connecting people with themselves, with the world, and helping them take care of themselves and helping them take care of the world.
Fabulous. That sounds absolutely amazing. So life is full for you.
I feel I'm really lucky. It is every day is just a celebration of being alive. And the more that I can lean into that, the more I realize the potential of that statement.
It's wonderful, isn't it, to no matter what's going on in the world or in our lives personally, to have something like a nature journal in your bag kind of feels like a secret weapon, doesn't it? Like if you're waiting for the phone to ring or the car to come back from the garage, or perhaps waiting for something to happen, like even waiting in a doctor's appointment, or just for something that is making you feel a little bit riled and nervous. I always think now's the time to get my nature journal out and just to look out the window, just to notice maybe the clouds scudding by, the trees, whatever might
Yes.
be going on.
I don't know if I call it a secret weapon, because then I've got the context of kind of being against something. Maybe a secret present. Right? A
And
secret little gift for myself or the world. And that you can pull out in these times. And what it does is in those times, like you're in the doctor's office, you pull it out and that moment will become special because you'll be paying a little bit more attention to it. And so yeah, you can turn all those little interstitial moments of our world and our life into something that actually is special because we paid just a little bit more attention.
absolutely right. Couldn't agree with you more. I'm thinking of those times where I've been in a similar situation or known people in the GOGA community who've gone through some quite challenging times. And to just gently suggest that you have, yeah, you're right. Calling it a weapon is a bit strong, but perhaps, yeah, a secret present or a little treasure in your bag or your
Yeah.
pocket. It's an opportunity to maybe perhaps step outside of your mind, step outside of the storyline, and maybe notice a fly buzzing around, or maybe just the color of the light outside, and just try and imagine how you might capture that when you get home in watercolor. And that thought alone actually presses the reset button, at least for a little while. It's not a fix or a cure, but it's just a really
Mhm.
nice, useful way to just break perhaps a spiraling thought pattern. And it's been really good.
That's right. And that opportunity is available to us anywhere we go, any place which we go. And um, I find when especially when I am feeling, maybe not especially, but I would say even when I'm feeling depressed or feel like the weight of the world, this tool is really, really important in my life. I like how you mentioned that it kind of re presses the reset button. It allows you to kind of get out of that tangled buzz between your ears. That sometimes it's just this loop. You're in a little loop. You're kind of stuck in a loop of obsessing about something. And this practice will say, "Hey, wait a minute. There's a ladybug." Oh, right? And all of a sudden that whole conversation, which wasn't really going anywhere, which wasn't productive in your head, and we just sort of find ourselves obsessing about something, then we're able to ah, breathe more deeply, be there with the ladybug. And when you come up again from the spiral of attention that the ladybug pulled you into, you sometimes have a different perspective on what your obsession was before. And it lets you kind of go from that point forward, maybe in a different direction, or even if you are heading in the same direction, to do so a little bit more mindfully.
I like what you did there. I don't know if it was a conscious thing, but as you said, it's like your shoulders drop. And I really connect with that. And also putting that within the context of community as well, because I think it's one thing to go out and nature journal on your own, and you're never really alone in doing that because you've got the ladybugs and the leaves,
That's
you've got
right.
all kinds of stuff.
I have some great conversations with them.
Do you talk to nature? Do you
I do
actually,
all the time, constantly.
what do you say? What kind of things?
Well, sometimes it's just, well, look at you. And good morning, and how are you doing? And like, I'll tell them all about what's different about what they're doing than I expected. Like, in my mental model, you're red, but now looking at you, you're actually a deep orange little ladybug, aren't you? I don't have a feeling that the ladybug is talking back to me, but there's a relationship there, and I'm not inferring some kind of animism. Relationships are born through attention, and you're giving your attention deeply to this thing. Through that attention, you start to sort of figure out what is special, what is wonderful about this, whatever phenomena is in front of you. So I find that just in a personal way, the conversation kind of opens things up. I also find it's an incredibly powerful attention hack. Um, there's a phenomenon called the production effect, which is when you say things out loud, your brain remembers it more. So the conversation helps me pay attention, it helps me remember, and it also kind of personalizes this experience. And being alive next to something, it is personal.
It is, isn't it? Everything is interesting, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be high end, amazing landscapes, beautiful views. You don't have to travel to a nature reserve or somewhere outstandingly wonderful to do nature journaling. You can actually do it on kids' art. You can actually do it
Yes,
on stuff that's in your fridge
yes,
or
yes.
whatever, wherever. It's all good, isn't it?
It is. I mean, what an interesting world we live in. And the level that our brain attends to things is just sort of a level that is required for survival. But a lot of the really like interesting, like the or the oh, that or the all of those experiences are you have to kind of push your attention a little bit beyond where you usually stop to ripen those fruits.
That is absolutely. My next observation of what you said was that I think when you coach us, or we in a community at the World Wonder Foundation are sort of coaching each other each Wednesday night, the Educators Forum, quick plug there. Um, the the thing that comes back is time and again, you look at something, then you look at it again, and then you look at it again, and just past the point at which you think you've noticed it enough, you keep looking, and that's when the magic starts to happen, doesn't it? Because there'll be
Yeah.
things that you haven't realized. You think you're looking at an everyday ordinary butterfly or ladybird, but actually taking that time, that sustained attention that you say is so magical, is well worth your time, well worth it.
Yes, Sarah, I absolutely agree. Um, yeah, the world is infinite. Our attention is finite. And so what you are doing with this intentional attention is you are pushing the edge of where your attention has stopped deeper into the world. And that's where the mystery, that's where the learning, that's where the growth, that's where the beauty is. I mean, there are some kind of low-hanging fruit beauties around us all the time that our brains pick up on. Like and a lot of that is just from our training. When we see a sunset, we say to ourselves, "Oh, that's so beautiful." Even if it's not particularly a spectacular sunset, we've been trained that sunsets are beautiful. So we look at sunsets and notice the beauty in them. But we don't do that with a garden slug because we're trained that garden slugs are not where we respond with beauty.
Yeah.
And we're not where we respond with interest. One of my favorite nature journal philosophers, Fiona Galogally, has famously said, "The more interested you are, the more interesting the world becomes."
Oh, I like that. I like that. And it's an invitation to play as well, isn't it? Because
That's
you
right.
could, uh, I don't know, go around, go through life sort of collecting observations and treat it very, very, very seriously. And as if you are doing a scientific journal. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I think even the greatest scientists and philosophers and nature journalists are playful because there are accidental discoveries in that playfulness.
That's right. So yeah, to play is to is to engage with the phenomenon around you. And the more that you're willing to sort of bring playfulness into that, the more fun it is. And the more fun you're having, the more likely you are to do it again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's getting into a habit or a hobby, isn't it? So that you want to go out and you want to go and play, and stopping before reaching burnout, putting it down, going to do something else, but trying to keep that playful mindset all around you because there might be something that you'll go, ah, that is journaling gold. I need to get that. I need to get it. Um, just wondering if you wanted to play with an idea, because one of the questions I've got from the community is really interesting. Okay. The first one is, if you could shrink down to the size of a bug for a day, what part of nature would you explore and why?
Oh, yeah, where wouldn't you want to go? You could have fun anywhere you go. Um, just, here in the house that I'm in right now, just I could spend the day sitting on the edge of the sink. Can you imagine how much fun it would be to play with a water drop? Water drop, if you're small, is a totally different phenomenon. Like you put your hand on it, and now your hand is stuck in the surface tension. And like, can you break through that? Like how could you like if you're too small, you touch it and you can't get away from it. You're now stuck on the side of this little water drop going like this surface tension thing is I think if I was so small, the surface tension could really be scary. So
Mm.
make I go for big enough to be able to kind of get out of that and be able to play with it. Like, but wouldn't that be a weird thing? It would completely change the way you think about water. Water in this context, it's like a big bump sitting up this, the size of a beach ball.
Yeah.
Put your hand on it and it jiggles and wiggles and then it's sort of sticky. I mean, look, that would be so weird. And that's just the dewdrop on the blade of grass wherever you have gone. We just take for granted the perspective that we have. Like, how much fun would it be to kind of go into the perspective of anything else? You change your size, the world completely changes. Um, you know, you change the organism, like or the sensory apparatus, the Umwelt of what you are, and the world around you is a completely different thing. Oh man,
Yeah.
I can't stop now thinking about playing a big beach ball of a water drop.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. I mean, the thought of John Muir Laws shrunk down to the size of, let's say, a really decent sized beetle. So you're quite strong, but then
All
you're
right.
just on the edge of a sink for the day, just marveling at water drops as though, you need a
Oh
leaf
yeah.
app or something, don't you? Just to kind of keep the interest. And yeah, yeah. And I would
You
imagine
want
you
to have some snacks.
you want it, yeah, you want some snacks, you want your journal with you, some decent art materials, so you
But
could carry with it.
would drinking be different? Like, what would it be like to then try to, like, if you got thirsty, could you take a sip of that water? Or would that water get stuck in your esophagus and choke you?
Oh, or would your face get stuck to the side of the water drop?
Awkward. Oh, and yeah, the whole idea of scaling is interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, if you're small enough, you could jump off the edge of the counter and free fall through the air all the way down. You're thinking, but it's so far. But your velocity and your impact there is going to be relative to your weight. And you're now like, a mouse can jump off a really, really tall building and kind of land and kind of go like, whoa, that was weird.
Mm.
And but you get the size of a rat, and all of a sudden you go off that same building and you splat when you hit the bottom.
Yeah.
There are insects that are so small that their wings aren't a big membrane. Their wings are a little rod that goes out with some hairs that are sticking out. And they just use that to move through the thick medium of air. They stop beating their wings. They're not really falling
So they're
because
kind of
air,
swimming almost like
yeah,
a,
sort of
yeah.
pushing yourself through this air medium with these the wings look like it's a little rod that goes out with a ball on the end of it, and then there are hairs that stick out on it instead of a membrane.
Mm.
I mean, the physics that I know in the world around me are relative to the size that I experience them.
Yeah, and we just accept that the laws of physics and biology and nature and living and social everything are just, that's how it is. But it would be amazing, wouldn't it, just to try out
You
being,
change your size,
yeah.
everything changes. Like if I think about my lungs and my capacity to breathe, if I'm an insect, I can have little holes in my side and air can kind of diffuse, through these little tubercles and things that are in this network through my body. Would human lungs fail if you brought me down to the size of a beetle? Because now all the surface tension on the sort of moist interior of my lungs, it's 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 kind of going on the physics of me being this size. So there could be some dangers in this. Like if you honey I shrunk the kids me, all right, is that a death sentence?
Oh, I wouldn't want that because we need you around, Jack,
I
really.
would want
We'd
to be
like to do
around and
that.
I'd want to
Yeah.
have my journal. I mean, what it's fun to think about this sort of stuff, isn't it?
there's so much opportunity in there to kind of figure out what would happen. How would you cope? How would you survive? I love it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole all of our scaling, we are we are a creature that whose physical proportions are scaled to the size that we actually exist at. If
Yeah.
we existed at a smaller scale, we would look completely different. If we existed at a larger scale, we would look completely different. But we take it for granted that like this is the normal size because of my bias as the observer.
Yeah, totally right. And it'd be nice to do different point of views as well. Like, yeah, a nice walk through the woods as a human is very, very different as a whole lifetime adventure for a ladybug, or it could just
Yes.
be a tiny little moment for a migrating kite or bird on its way to Africa. And it's, minuscule in comparison to this global perspective that other species have. So, yeah,
Right,
fascinating topic.
right, right. Add in the sensory apparatus of some other organism. If you're now a pistol shrimp or a mantis shrimp, you have eyes which can see this incredible spectrum of colors that are impossible for human beings to imagine. We can't imagine what it is like would be like just to have one other additional cell in our eyes that allowed us to see ultraviolet light.
Mm.
Um, there are other critters out there that with instead of having kind of three different kinds of light sensors in their eyes, they've got four. And then there are other species that, like the mantis shrimp, I think, what is it, 30 or 40? I don't know. Somebody counted it. And it is our human brain cannot even possibly imagine what the world could look like just adding one other color sensitive cell into our eyes. What would
That
it
is
be like with
mind blowing, isn't
30?
it?
Yeah.
Absolutely mind blowing. Yeah, and there's so many topics. I mean, even again, you don't have to go somewhere exotic or find something rare. It's everyday things. It's back garden, backyard animals like the slug, like our robin, a robin redbreast, the European robin over here. I was reading about just a couple of days ago, has got cells in the back of its eye which are so sensitive it can actually detect molecular level shifts in the Earth's magnetic fields, and that's how it's figuring out navigation. Perhaps nobody knows.
Oh,
You just think, how
yeah.
on earth are they seeing? Our back garden could be completely different landscape to them, to the one that we're
Right.
looking at every day.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Bees seeing polarized light. What would it look like to see polarized light? You change your visual apparatus, and just it's nuts. Something that I've been playing with recently is I got an attachment for my camera that allows me to see in um, in the infrared spectrum, and it's a forward-looking infrared camera, and so it essentially is seeing heat and you start looking around the world through this lens of heat, and you're asking completely different questions. You're noticing completely different sorts of things. You just change your sensory apparatus a little bit or extend it a little bit, and there's there's all this information going around us that we are completely oblivious of. Can you imagine, the what is the sense experience of the honeybee? What is the sense experience of a moth that can both what it sees and what it hears, just crazy stuff. Like bats flying around, making sounds that we can't hear, but their hearing is so good that they can hear the echoes of their own voices bouncing off objects around them, hearing the echoes of their own voice bouncing off things. I know we all know what echolocation is, but you start thinking about that, and that's incredible.
it is. And
And
they
then
can
there are
figure out.
moths that have these little sound making apparatuses to jam that radar so that the bats they're invisible to the bats because they make these noises that can confuse the bats. Well, like, what's going on out there? What a wonderful, wonderful planet.
It
Huh?
is incredible. And the more you study, the more there is, there's just all these wonders. I mean, I haven't read a fiction book in years because I think there's so much wildlife out there with all these tiny little stories, these little wow moments. Like you could not make that up. You really couldn't.
Oh,
It's
well,
amazing.
what a gift it is for us, even with the limited senses we have, to have these senses and to have this brain where we can have this conversation and geek out about these things. Like,
Yeah.
yes, it would be wonderful to have like bat senses and other sorts of things. But just like with what we've got right now and how we can wonder and celebrate this stuff. And
Mm,
then I think of the journal as sort of a force multiplier for that. Let's take it's just sort of acknowledging that my brain has a hard time paying attention and handling complexity and all this sort of stuff, but I can get that stuff down in the pages of the journal, and then it just becomes so much more fun. That, as you said, like
absolutely.
there in the dentist's office and like, wow, this is the best dentist office exhibit visit I've ever had, right?
Yeah, because it's an opportunity for that whole stream of consciousness stuff as well, isn't it? Because we talk at Wild Wonder gatherings or when we're doing nature journaling with GOGA, we do talk about how to structure the journal page, and we're sort of trying to strive for this balance between words, and I know I'm definitely a words person. I kind of lean towards that, and I'll fill
Right.
pages and pages and pages of it, which is great. But then we need to kind of add in the pictures, but they don't have to be good pictures, right? Do they? They don't have to be a finished artwork.
Right.
And then the numbers, and that's something that I personally struggle with, but I'm trying to encourage myself and the community to do, of actually playing around with numbers and size and dimension and all kinds
Mm.
of things. And I'll chat about scale and light. It all kind of lends itself to that kind of technique, that scaffold, which I think is really valuable. And it's an opportunity to geek out. It's wonderful. I'm aware that time is marching on as well, but I just wanted to do a couple of quick fire questions, if I may, with you.
Absolutely.
Great stuff, because I could literally geek out with you for hours. Actually, I have so many facts, but I'm having to literally bite my lip here because we will.
Then either we do that now or we do it more another time and we have a part deux and just geek out.
Yeah.
Either way, we're we're good. Probably for a podcast timing, it would be more valuable to sort of have a series of smaller conversations that because nobody ever gets to the end of a 1 hour podcast. The
No, that. Yeah, we could just put it out there and see who can stick it out to the end. But
our
I
collective
would
attention
certainly
spans have now gone like, could you please boil that down to 15 seconds for me?
we just come on screen and go, bugs, they're great. That's it. Next.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Loved them. Loved them. Do it
they're
again.
great. They're great.
I
Yeah.
laughed. I cried.
I have a question here from Gina, who's a member of GOGA. She comes out with us almost every single week on a Wednesday. She is absolutely at the heart of GOGA. She's wonderful. And
Well,
she would like,
one of these days, we have to. I have to get out sometime that I'm in the UK to one of your Goga parties. That would be
oh,
so much fun.
we would love that. We'd absolutely love it. Yeah. And if you're ready for some healthy British sarcasm and inappropriate humor and lots of cake, you would be, yeah, you'd fit in very, very
All
well.
right,
Really
I'm
well.
in.
Yeah, great stuff. So Gina wants to know what came first for you. Was it observation of nature or drawing? So was there a little Jack Laws with a crayon loving drawing first or loving nature first?
Ah, it was the egg. The egg came first.
The egg came first. Okay, so
Uh,
you have to guess now.
like many kids, I liked drawing, but it was mostly, astronauts and cowboys and these sorts of things. Then at the same time, but an independent of that was this track where I was studying nature with my family. But the two did not cross over. They were in their own separate magisteria, if you will, right? Non-overlapping uh, magisteria. And then I was on a nature study walk with my family, and one of my mom's friends, this woman named Neela Watley, and Neela was out there, and she had a sketchbook, and she was hiking through the meadows, and she was draw. It was a botany walk, and she was drawing all the flowers which we found. I was blown away and captivated, and I was like, "Oh, you can do this! Oh, art meet nature, nature." Meet art. And my mom, who is a very observant woman, noticed that her little ADHD child, who is normally just running around and sort of bumping off of everything, was her shadow. And everywhere Neela would go, little Jack would go bunk, and she'd sit down in the meadow and start drawing, and I'd sit down next to her, kind of going like, hmm. And
Wow.
then she'd get up and she'd move to the next place and she'd draw another flower. And I would pop up and follow and pop up and follow. She's like, that's interesting. So what she did is the next time we went out on a little family trip, she said, "Hey Jack, I've got something for you." And she went to the back of the old Plymouth Valiant and opened up the hood, the trunk, or I guess what you call the boot. Opened up the boot, and uh, was the same kind of sketchbook that Neela had, and the same sorts of pencils. So she found exactly what is the kit that Neela was using, and she had that for me, and said, "Go," and I did.
Oh, wow. Wow. And here you are.
Yeah, and so and all what that did is these two areas were totally overlapping all of a sudden, and from that point on, yes,
Fantastic. Well, I mean, I think we should all take our hats off to Neela then. I mean, this is
yes,
this
that's
is
right. Oh,
great.
and just a wonderful follow-up story on that. So, before the Wild Wonder Foundation existed, before the COVID pandemic, I was teaching nature journaling around the San Francisco Bay Area. Instead of going online, there were these live classes, and so what I did is I found seven or sometimes eight different locations around the San Francisco Bay Area, and every month I would go around to these different locations and teach a live nature journaling class in those locations. And there was a woman in my class who would come with some friends regularly. She was in a wheelchair, and this was a place that had special accommodations. She could come in, she'd get herself set up, and she'd draw. And one day she said, You may not recognize me. I'm Neela Watley."
No way. The Neela. That's amazing. I have to have a
Neela.
look.
And she came and she joined those classes, and she was the one who got me started nature journaling.
Oh, that is beautiful. And were you able to say to her? Because I'd
Yeah,
imagine
yeah.
you would.
This is happening because of you, Neela, right?
Yeah,
You were my my spark journaler.
wonderful. Just in the same way that you're my Spark journaler. So thank you very much.
So the both of us thank Neela. All right.
Yeah, thank you,
I
Neela.
wonder who got Neela started doing.
It would be great to find out. Yeah, yeah. And it's just that having people in the community who role model and give you permission at whatever age to just do something that is going to be really fulfilling, I think is priceless, isn't it? You can't put a price on it. You really can't. Which, yeah, wonderful.
But also, just think of the power of our example, right?
Mm.
You know, you're out there with Goga, and somebody, a child walks up and looks down and sees your sketchbook. Maybe they're another kid where in their world, nature's over here and art's over here, and you have just intersected the Venn diagram.
Wow, that's a nice thought. That's a really nice thought. And a lot of the feedback I get from people who come along to Goga, I think, oh, okay, that's quite powerful. Thank you very much. And it's mostly around feeling good and finding purpose and having something to get up for in the morning. A lot of people who have gone through childhood and much of adulthood, and now they're getting to their like wisdom years, shall we say, and they just want to introduce a little bit more playfulness and freedom and creativity, but they feel like they can't give themselves permission to do that because an art teacher or somebody critical or perhaps failures in the past have not allowed them to kind of just step into that world. So it's a total privilege to be able to say, well, here's your space, here's your opportunity, here's your crayon, let's go for a walk and see what
Mm.
happens. And it's yeah, it's a great thing. I have a question from a beautifully named Wren, as in the bird, and she's a member of GOGA, and she says, she asks, what draws you to nature, and what drives you to translate that to art on the page?
I guess why nature? Well, first of all, I am drawn to any phenomenon that I see around me, and I consider it all nature. The world is just is here to be played in, right? And let's go. So I don't I consider all of human developed stuff part of nature. Something that's neat about the nature developed part of nature is there's this sort of infinite structure to it. Um, you look at it at the organism level and you're like, wow, there's so much to see there. And then you kind of go in a little bit closer and you look at say the organ level and it's like, oh my gosh, this is an incredible structure. And then you get in closer than that at the tissue level, at the cellular level, right? At the intracellular level. Like, it is it's this cascade, this infinite cascade of structure. When you look at the human world, the you kind of zoom into a certain point and the intentionality or the structure behind it disappears. And then you're just sort of, you might be looking at, well, what is the structure of the component material of the asphalt? But you can't go as deep. With nature, it's just filled with all these it's just surprises and wonders and all sorts of things that we can't figure out. The number of just the it's this big pile of mysteries and intrigue. It's tons of fun. It might be because of culture or genetics, but I find, so much in nature intrinsically beautiful and wondrous. Check out the sunset. Check out, the light as it crosses that field. Check out the color in the snowbank. There is so much beauty everywhere to be celebrated, and so much wonder to stimulate our inquiry. It is a perpetual source of awe.
Wonderful.
You want to get your awe on, go out in
Yeah.
nature. And so with the drawing part of it, why am I drawn to draw it or drawn to journal about it? Doesn't have to be drawing, right? The journaling is my best tool for helping my limited brain be able to hold at once a little bit more of the awesome wonder that is before me. And the journal does that really, really well. And so that motivates me to pull out that notebook and to go there on the pages of that notebook. My brain can hold about 7 different concepts at a time. And
Yeah.
once it get beyond that, my brain's like, there's a wonderful old Far Side cartoon. Are you folks familiar with the Far Side in the UK?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Gary Larson has his Far Side cartoon, and this little child in a class raising his hand and asking, "Is the teacher, may I please be excused? My brain is full." And so if our brains can handle 7 concepts plus or minus two, and once we get more than that, then we start kicking this one out to make room for the next. And so I'm that little kid, my brain is full. And what the journal allows me to do is to um, download part of the information that I'm collecting onto this storage capture device and then frees up processing space in my brain for handling either relationships between things or the next piece that wants to come in. So when I externalize my thinking onto that paper, my ability to think, my ability to engage, my ability to wonder, my ability to notice things, all those things ramp up. And that makes this world even more beautiful.
It does. It does. Yeah, with a bit of curiosity. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you. I have one very last quick question, and it's from
I'm
Satya.
sorry, it's the last one. This is fun for me too.
Good. I'm glad. I'm having a great time. Um, Satyo asks, do you always do observational drawing, or have you ever dabbled in expressive art to get your feelings out on the page or the canvas?
Yes, and yes. So there's observational stuff. There's also stuff from imagination or memory, but still in those cases, sometimes I'm trying to be figurative. Sometimes I'm trying to express ideas in sort of the sketchnoting form. And sometimes I also like just to play with materials or play with color and to see what comes out in that. I find myself very drawn to the analytical part of my brain often leans more towards the figurative. Um, but sometimes just the playing with things is wonderful. One of my favorite artists, everybody knows like I go for William D. Barry, right? He's this very meticulous scientific illustrator who does all this great stuff. I love Rothko. These just huge blocks of immersive color. Ah, I love it.
Its ability to kind of reduce quite a complicated subject down into blocks of color, I think, is a huge skill, isn't it? That you can
Hmm.
still see a lot in a really simple bit of art. Uh, if I could share one with you, there was an artist called David Nash, I think, who is Welsh and loves trees. And he takes storm damaged trees and turns them into sculptures and celebrates them. And he says that they are light, air, and water playing with themselves and expressing themselves through the form of tree. And I went to an exhibition of his in Anglesey and was blown away, really kind of moved to tears at just five massive blocks of colour going from the ceiling down to the floor. Each one was a slightly different shade of yellow through orange through to green. And it was a simple title. He said, "It's the colour change I notice in a single oak leaf from summer to autumn."
Oh, I would think we can hang with this person.
Yeah,
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, we don't want to, whatever brings you alive in your art, do that, more of that. That's wonderful.
great. Thank you. Well, I have so many more questions I could ask you. I really genuinely feel I could talk to you for hours. But I want to thank you and maybe just ask if you have any final thoughts or observations or messages for GOGA, because this, after all, is our community podcast. And
Oh,
yeah, it was just on behalf of the community, thank you for all the great work you do in supporting nature journaling and for creating such a great worldwide community, without which I don't think GOGA would exist, really, because it's essential to my support personally, but also my curiosity, my imagination, and I really hope that you go from strength to strength so that GOGA can carry on growing. But if you have anything that you would like to share, please do.
oh, Sarah, thank you so much. For me, this has been really, really, really fun, and I look forward to another conversation where we can bat around whatever is in our heads. This is really, really fun. I enjoyed it so much. And I guess for folks um, within Goga, I would think of one of our greatest strengths is comes from when we start doing things together in community. And what a gift you have given this community to kind of have a place to kind of come together. And I want to encourage people to take advantage of that, get to know each other, learn from each other, play with somebody else's ideas and make it your own, and push each other to grow together. Hang out with each other, drink tea together, have cake, laugh, goof off, get geeky. To build connections between each other, around these sorts of things, I think this gives us so much strength. We live in a world that's just so divided against itself these days. And for finding, places in nature through art and nature to be able to come together in community, we're going to start to realize that we've got so much more in common with each other than we have that separates us. And let this be just a powerful way to come together. The more you lean into that, the more you participate in that, the more this whole endeavor will grow. And I want to encourage you to go and geek out like a big dog. And um, and if you are listening to this podcast and you're not part of GOGA community, you think to yourself like, "Ah, gee, I wish I lived over there with you folks so that I could come out and join you." Um, I want you to. So Sarah started this in her area because there wasn't something like this. And what it takes is not, you don't have to be the great artist, the great naturalist. You have to be somebody with enough kind of audacity and chutzpah to kind of say, well, let's just start something like this and let's do this together. And it grows from there. And what if you were to create something like this in your area with your community? The world needs this. And I think if you do it, you're going to find it is so much fun. It will become one of the great strengths and joys in your life.
Couldn't agree with you more. Thank you very much. And should we do some quick plugs for our respective organizations and communities?
Okay. So if you want to learn more about me and what I'm doing, you can go to johnmuirlaws.com, and I've got a website there. I've got tons of free resources and on how to get involved with nature journaling and things that you can do. Some of it's how to do kind of really detailed and noodly about like, let's look at the legs of this beetle. And other times it's sort of more sort of big picture conceptual. What are we doing here and how can we organize this to make it more fun, more engaging? Also, lots of resources for educators. We started a nonprofit organization called the Wild Wonder Foundation to help support nature journaling around the world. And you can go to wildwonder.org and there find all of these resources. So for educators, for individuals, how to find and start your own nature and journaling club near you, educator certification and resources. If you want to kind of learn some things which we've learned about how does this work teaching it in a classroom or in a family or community, those resources I think you're going to find really, really useful. Um, just about everything is free or low cost and supported by donations. So that means that it's something that's going to be accessible to everybody. If it is possible to support those me and those institutions, it's wonderful. If not, we want to encourage you to come take advantage of those resources that are still available for everybody and make that part of your world. And I think that if you also think to yourself, I would like to be involved doing nature journaling, but I'm not an artist or I'm not a naturalist or I'm not a nature writer or whatever those arguments are, that's something that's very much part of the discussion in this community. We really believe, and we've got a lot of evidence to support that these are all skills that we can learn if we just start doing it. And if you're, if you're doing this later in your adult life and are just starting there, it's a great place to start anytime. You can start where you are and be very quickly kind of getting all sorts of rewards and connections and joys from it. And it's something that we all can do. What about you, Sarah?
Well, I run a community called Get Out, Get Arty, or GOGA for short, and it's based over in Shropshire in the UK. And we meet twice a week face to face and once a week online. So wherever you are in the world, you can join a GOGA doodle on a Tuesday night, which is 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. GMT. So wherever your time zone is, you might have to do a bit of maths to work that out. You can have a look at our website, which is getoutgetarty.co.uk. And the main activity is happening over on Facebook at the moment, which is Nature Journaling, Get Out, Get Arty. And I look forward to seeing you there. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack. It's great.
Sarah, this was a delight. A pleasure to be here and look forward to more adventures to come.
Yes, please.